When we hear the word nostalgia, we usually think about missing the past, missing a person, a place, a certain period of our lives, something that was once part of our reality but is now gone. But what if you could feel nostalgic for something you've never experienced? A place you've never been, a time when you didn't even exist, a life that was never yours. That's where one of the strangest and hardest to explain feelings comes in: anemoia. Imagine looking at an old photograph. Maybe it's a busy street in New York during the 1950s. Old cars driving by, people walking down the sidewalk, stores glowing in the background, kids playing in the street. You've never been there. You probably don't know a single person in that picture. And yet, for some reason, something inside you reacts to it. A strange feeling in your chest, a sense of familiarity, almost like you want to go back to that place, even though you know you've never been there. That's what makes anemoia so difficult to explain. You know it's not a memory, but somehow it feels like one. The term anemoia became known through John Koenig and his project, the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, which was created to give names to feelings that we experience but don't really have words for. And anemoia might be one of the most fascinating ones, because it describes nostalgia for a time, place, or experience that you never actually lived through. It's basically nostalgia without a memory, and there's a good chance you've felt it before without even knowing there was a word for it. You look at an old photograph and feel like you somehow belonged there. You hear a song from decades ago, and for a few seconds it feels like some forgotten memory is trying to come back. You watch a movie set in the 1980s and suddenly wish you could have lived during that time. But here's the interesting part. You're not necessarily missing the real past. You're missing the version of the past that exists inside your head. And that's a really important distinction, because the past we experience through anemoia is almost never completely real. It's a past filtered through our imagination. When we think about the 1980s, for example, we might picture VHS tapes, arcades, old cars, neon lights, music playing on the radio, and people living much simpler lives. But we don't usually picture the bad parts: economic problems, violence, disease, social inequality, all the problems people actually had to deal with. Instead, our minds pick out certain pieces of that era and turn them into this almost perfect little world. It's like taking random pieces of the past and putting them together into a reality that never really existed exactly that way. And maybe that's precisely why it's so appealing, because we're not really trying to go back to the past. We're trying to go back to an idealized version of it, a version where everything feels slower, simpler, more authentic, more meaningful. And maybe that's why certain old photographs can give you such a strange feeling. You've probably seen pictures of completely empty places: an old shopping mall, an abandoned school, a hotel hallway, a street that should be packed with people but is completely empty. There's something about these images that just feels wrong. You look at them and think, I feel like I've been here before, but you don't know when. You don't know where, and sometimes it almost feels like you weren't even the one who experienced it, like someone else's memory somehow got placed inside your head. And music can make this feeling even stronger. Music might be one of the most powerful time machines we have. An old recording doesn't just carry a melody, it carries the sound of its time, the way the instruments were recorded, the imperfections, the background noise, the crackle of a vinyl record, the distorted sound of an old cassette tape. All of those little details create an atmosphere. So when you listen to a song from the 1970s, you're not just hearing an old song. For a few moments, you're imagining what it would have been like to actually be there. Maybe driving down a highway at night, maybe walking through a small town, maybe stepping into a store you've never seen. It's almost like borrowing someone else's memory, an experience that never happened to you, but somehow your mind turns it into something personal. Movies can do the exact same thing. An old camera, a black and white photograph, a vintage advertisement, an old television, the way someone's house was decorated. Small details that shouldn't really mean much, but somehow create a very specific feeling. And the internet has made all of this incredibly easy to find. When someone wears vintage clothes, listens to old music, or decorates their room to look like another decade, they're not just following an aesthetic. In a way, they're trying to get closer to that world, almost like for a few minutes. They can live inside a time that was never theirs. But there's an even deeper question here. Why do we feel such a strong desire to escape into periods we've never experienced? Maybe it's because the present can be exhausting. We live in a world of constant stimulation, too much information, too many notifications, social media, news, politics, economic problems, uncertainty about the future. Everything moves so damn fast, and maybe that's exactly why the past feels so comforting. Even when we never lived through it, the past feels quiet, distant, untouchable. We can't change what already happened, and because of that, it can feel safe. Anemoia can almost work like a little mental escape. You close your eyes, put on an old song, and imagine an entirely different life. A life where you wake up in another decade, walk through a city you've never seen, meet people you've never known, live a routine you've never experienced. For a few minutes, you stop existing in the present, and honestly, that can feel pretty damn good. But there's a catch. The more we idealize a past we've never lived, the easier it becomes to see the present as something inferior, and that's where things can get complicated. Because the past we imagine never has to deal with reality. It doesn't have to deal with the problems that actually existed back then. It only exists inside our heads, and maybe it's perfect precisely because it never happened to us. That's one of the most fascinating things about Anemoia. We don't need to experience something to become emotionally attached to it. We can miss places we've never visited, people we've never met, decades we've never lived through. And that says a lot about the way our minds work. We're not made only from our own memories. We're also made from the stories we hear, the images we see, the music we listen to, the movies we watch, and the things we imagine. Maybe that's why an old photograph of a stranger taken 100 years ago can make us feel strangely emotional. We know that person was never part of our life, but somehow, for a few seconds, it almost feels like they were. If that's ever happened to you, then you've probably experienced Anemoia. And maybe the strangest part of all is this: you can miss something you've never had, and even when you know that, the feeling can still feel completely real.